Miami had an up and down weekend that leads to some questions about how they move forward without Bam Adebayo, but there's some good news on the horizon regarding Jimmy Butler and Nostradumbwes returns. All that and more here on Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Heat Nation. It's a Monday edition of Locked On Heat, your daily podcast covering all things Miami Heat, however you may be listening here on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app. Thank you so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm David Ramil, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Wes Goldberg. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Check out prizepicks.com and use the promo code NBA, or go to your app store and download the app today. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Wes, an interesting weekend for the Miami Heat without Jimmy Butler, who stayed in Miami while the team traveled on to Indiana on Friday. A win for the Heat there. And then on the second night of a back-to-back, traveling to Milwaukee, a game where Giannis Antetokounmpo sat out. Miami was just absolutely clubbed, 124 to 102, a tough loss for the Heat. But it was a good win against the Pacers, and yet, to me, it kind of seems like there's some open-ended questions about this team and how they respond, especially if they're going to be missing Bam Adebayo for a considerable amount of time, which we know they will. Were there any specific takeaways that you had from either of these games that you thought were worth bringing up today on a Monday?
Well, the first one is, I think, splitting that back-to-back on the road without Jimmy Butler, without Bam Adebayo, you walk away from that actually kind of feeling good about yourself. I think that to me is a win. I know that there's a lot of things that I want to get into kind of bigger picture with Miami's struggles recently, but being able to go into Indianapolis, into Milwaukee, and I know Milwaukee didn't have Brook Lopez and they didn't have Giannis, obviously,
yeah.
but it's, whatever. You're without your two top players if you're the Heat. You're able to split the difference on two road back-to-back games. Come back to Miami for and you're staying at home all week long. So all things considered, I think you feel pretty good coming back to FTX right now.
Yeah, it's essential as Miami has the next three games at home to at least try to build some kind of momentum. And I think they got a snippet of that on Friday against the Indiana Pacers. A good dominant win for them with some strong performances from guys off the bench and things of that sort. Duncan Robinson seems to be finding his stroke again, even seeming a little snippety after the post-game press conference. Not sure if you saw that when Ira Winderman of the Sun Sentinel asked him a question about doubting him somewhat, and Duncan looked him up and said, or did you doubt me? And he said, yeah, kind of, sort of. And then Duncan responded, okay, noted. And he kind of looked a little upset that a lot of people were doubting him. So I guess now he's kind of feeling his groove a little bit. So that's good to see, because he bounced back with some two strong games, even against the Pacers. Against the Bucks, he wound up having a strong showing. But I think there are some questions about those two games that kind of, specifically the Bucks game, that I at least had regarding this team and how they move forward, because the Bucks just look really good. Like, they were able to sign Wesley Matthews, they got DeMarcus Cousins, and even without their MVP in Giannis and a strong role player in Brook Lopez, they just dominated the Heat. And I know you can make whatever argument you want without Jimmy, without Bam, it takes away the identity of this team. But first of all, did Miami miss a golden opportunity to win in Milwaukee in a game where Giannis was out of the lineup? And I think that's an interesting question. To me, I don't know. I think I kind of agree with you. At least splitting it, you can kind of hold your head and say, you know what, we would have liked to have gotten that win, but the odds were stacked against them.
Right.
They looked tired. They looked kind of, just like ready to go on and go home and move on from this game. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I mean, look, if the Heat were healthy with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, or even just Jimmy Butler, and you go into Milwaukee without Giannis, that's a blown opportunity. But considering that you were you were just going deep into that bench, you guys are so injured. I know that Milwaukee's also hurt, but it's the second night of a back-to-back on the road. Yeah, I don't think that was a missed opportunity. And that, look, I think you and I we were kind of looking ahead on the schedule. We had that Saturday night game circled. We talked, maybe we do a live stream after that game. Maybe we do something like this because it's going to be a big deal. And then, in the days leading up to it, we're like, this is not going to be a big game. Like, Giannis has taken a couple of games off now for rest. That wasn't just the only one he had. He's got some sort of lingering thing that he's just taken care of. If it were the playoffs or games that matter in a playoff push, he would be out there. And for the Heat, you get the same sense with Jimmy Butler a little bit. You never want to just kind of look over a tailbone contusion. Those things are really difficult to come back from in the past. And so I'm sure, though, if Jimmy Butler were playing in the playoffs right now, he would be out there too. But it just sort of seems like one of those games that both teams wanted to just get behind them in the rearview mirror, so to speak. So no, I don't think it was a blown out. The one thing that I do want to talk about a little bit is just some of the bigger picture stuff that I am concerned about with Miami. And I know we'll talk about the rebounding here a little bit, but just overall in that Milwaukee game, I don't know if it was just the fact that it was a second night of a back-to-back,
Mhm.
but they seemed really slow on just basic stuff. Like the thing that they were in the beginning of the season, they were so crisp with their passes. They
Yep.
were so good closing out on three-point shooters. They were rebounding the crap out of the ball. They were really playing hard, and they weren't making dumb mistakes. And against Milwaukee, they were like the passes weren't crisp. Like even when there was several moments where the pass was just delivered too late, and it would end up being a deflection for the Bucks, and then Miami would like let an easy scoring opportunity just sort of slip through their fingers. The rebounding, they just weren't boxing out a whole lot, even though they're basically playing Caleb Martin as their backup power forward in that game. So
Right.
and Milwaukee, even without Giannis and Brook Lopez, are still enormous, right? And so I
Yep.
think that was a big factor in that. But just like 3 or 4 times, David, just letting the Bucks just score in transition off of a make. They would hit a layup, and the next thing you know, Milwaukee's got an outlet pass, and they're scoring on their own basket in there. And it's just like that's unacceptable. You can't do that if you're a team with championship aspirations. I don't care if you're injured. I don't care whoever is on the roster should know better. And those are some of the things I'm more concerned about. I don't know if it's just because some of those guys, like the Caleb Martins, Max Struess's,
Mhm.
Gabe Vincent's, they're just young, right? Like
Yep.
those aren't championship level players. They're young players, and they're getting a whole lot of minutes right now. Omar Yurtseven too. Um, and then part of me also is, okay, are they just being asked to do so much over this last couple of weeks with so many injuries, your starters in and out of the lineup,
Yeah.
that maybe they're just tired, regardless of the second night of the back-to-back. Maybe they're just exhausted. That's why they're not closing out on shooters. That's why they're a hair
I
late on basic things and not focusing the way we're accustomed to seeing this team focus,
I would I
especially
would
early in the
say
season.
they had that energy in Indiana, but I think this is kind of gonna be a byproduct of starting 2 players that are 35 and over and have logged as many minutes as Lowry and PJ Tucker have. So I think that's the bigger problem because when you have a Bam Adebayo who's in his prime, you have Jimmy Butler in his prime, and they do so much defensively. They make those small plays, those quick trigger plays that you're talking about that kind of masks
Yeah.
the age deficiencies of players like Lowry and Tucker. So I think that's a big part of it, is missing those 2 crucial cogs. I hear what you're saying about a contending team they shouldn't be able to do this regardless of whoever's out there on the floor. But I think that's just a reality of players as they get older. They're going to be a little slower on the ball and things of that sort. But you bring up a good point that Miami has to do things a little bit more intently. We've seen Eric Spoelstra make those kind of comments along those same lines in several post-game pressers, particularly after
Yeah.
losses, that they have to move with intention, they have to move with purpose and things of that sort. Their passing, as you pointed out, was not as great. Now, I also had a bigger question about this team and watching how good Milwaukee was. We haven't been talking about the Bucks enough. I don't know if it's just this kind of hangover after a difficult COVID related season that, COVID is still impacting the league. And we've
Mhm.
seen, not only did it take out LeBron James, although he was able to bounce back, but we saw the Hornets roster being decimated as a result. There are still players, vaccinated or not, that are still testing positive. And you wonder whether or not it's just a matter of time before Miami gets hit themselves. But looking at the Milwaukee Bucks, they look like a really good team that seems like nobody seems to be
Yeah.
talking about them for whatever reason. Maybe it's because they started off the season slowly.
I think that's
Looking at
exactly what it was. I think
Yeah.
just it was the injuries, it was all the stuff, the fact that Brook Lopez is out, who's such a major contributor for them, and there's optimism in Bucks world that he could come back before the end of the regular season. But I think that's exactly it. And now, they just won 8 straight games.
Yep.
That streak ended right before they played the Heat, but that team is really good, and Giannis is playing at an MVP
Can
level
can
again. I mean, he
Miami
could win
hold their
another
own?
MVP this year
Can Miami hold their own against them? Because I think that's what a lot of Heat fans
in the
they're not even
playoffs.
thinking about. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about the Brooklyn Nets. That seems like they're the obvious favorites
Yeah.
here in the Eastern Conference. But why not the Bucks? And they seem to have Miami's number to some extent, not just because of the playoff sweep, but I wonder whether or not Miami feels like, with the additions of Lowry and Tucker and whatever other roster moves they make later on this season, that they can contend against a team like Milwaukee.
Well, that's why they made the Lowry and Tucker move. They
No doubt.
had Milwaukee in mind, and Brooklyn to a certain extent. PJ Tucker defended Kevin Durant credibly in the playoffs last year for the Bucks, but you made those moves because of the way that the Bucks were able to just just feast on a below average defensive backcourt. And you wanted to get bigger, you wanted to get stronger, more physical, a little bit grimier, a little bit nastier, and you did that by getting Lowry and PJ Tucker. Unfortunately, fortunately we saw the Heat at full strength earlier in the season in that opening night win against the Bucks, and they did, they played really well against them, blew them out. And then in this last game, neither team was really healthy. I don't think that there's much you could take away from it, other than the fact that I think Milwaukee is still, to your point, a really smart team. I know people just look at Giannis and their size and are like, oh, you're just super big and you're just out physical. That's a really smart team. They close out well. They're on a string defensively. They're doing all the right things. They have championship experience and championship confidence. If anybody's overlooking the Bucks, I don't know what to tell you. Like, they are an absolute factor in the Eastern Conference, and that just seems like they might be the best team in the East right now. They probably are with Giannis healthy.
The two teams will be rematching on Wednesday at the FTX Arena, and Jimmy Butler is expected to be back in the lineup for that. Listed as questionable as we're recording this on Sunday for Monday's game against Memphis, so likely to return on Monday against the Grizzlies, and we'll see how he's able to hold his own, and especially leading up to that matchup again, maybe a little chance for revenge against the Bucks on Wednesday. Should be a great game. But we'll talk a little bit more about Miami's issues rebounding in the third segment. Of course, we'll get a visit from Nostradumbwes the next. But first, let me tell all of you about Prize Picks. If you're an NBA fanatic, maybe you haven't heard about Prize Picks, but Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. I love this, and I know you will too. Prize Picks has the best NBA DFS prop game on the market. Prize Picks offers more NBA props than any other DFS prop operator and offers all the superstar players as well as bench players, only recording a handful of minutes each game. Prize Picks offers any prop you can think of, from yardage to touchdowns, even interceptions thrown. All of your users that deposit and use your promo code will receive a 100% instant deposit match of up to $100. Just be sure to use the promo code NBA. You can pick 2 to 5 players and an over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry, and it's just you versus the projected numbers. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Prize Picks is safe and offers fast withdrawals, so don't hesitate. Check out prizepicks.com and use the promo code NBA, or go to your app store and download the app today. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. And speaking of making things easy, today I want to tell you about a simple way to get all the entertainment you love without the hassle. That's DirecTV Stream. It brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, which means you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. And the best part, no annual contract, so stop waiting and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com.
All right, it's time to make some predictions for the week. It's time for Nostradumbwes. Here we are, David. Before we get into my predictions for this week, make sure, thank you, first of all, for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Please do subscribe. All right, David. Let's first do a review of my predictions last week. Now, number one, I said no drama against Denver in that Monday night game, and that's exactly what happened. That one was pretty easy. It was a little bit of an easy one for Nostradamus to predict there. But then, it got a little dicey. Jimmy Butler, I said he would get 4 steals against Cleveland. He did not play, so that no longer counts. Jimmy Butler, I thought he would score 40 against Indiana. He did not play, again, because of that tailbone contusion. So that one doesn't count. But I'm going to go ahead and just chalk those up as W's for me, since I didn't have the opportunity to lose.
Those things. Yeah, right. He would have gotten 4 steals. He would have gotten 40 points had he played.
And then I did predict that Duncan Robinson would make 6 3-pointers against Milwaukee. Now, that wasn't exactly what happened. He made 3 against Milwaukee. He made 4 in the game before the Milwaukee game against Indiana. And because the Jimmy Butler prediction didn't count because Jimmy Butler didn't play, I'm going to go ahead and just lump the 3s that Duncan Robinson made against Indiana in with the ones that he made against Milwaukee. And you just add those together, and that's 7 threes. So, in fact, Duncan Robinson outdid my Nostradamus' prediction. So I'm going to go ahead and chalk that up as a W too. So that was an undefeated week for Nostradamus.
That's kind of murking the tea leaves a little bit there, kind of reading them however you want to. But you know what? I trust you. You've got the great vision. I think maybe you know best.
I think so too. All right, it's time to get into some predictions for the week.
Oh.
Monday against Memphis, David. The Heat have played the Grizzlies well this season. We're going to talk a little bit more about the rebounding issues that we alluded to earlier in the show. But I think in this game, they win the rebounding battle. And the reason I say that is because the last time these two teams met, Miami out-rebounded the Grizzlies 50-32. That was a pretty wide margin, even with Steven Adams and some of those great size guys and rebounders that Memphis has. And that was in a game without Bam. But with Jimmy Butler. And what are we going to have on Monday? Jimmy Butler is expected to make his return. Bam Adebayo will not be available. So I think you're going to be getting roughly the same lineup. Ja Morant's not going to be available for Memphis, I don't believe, at this point. And he's kind of an underrated rebounder at his position. I think Miami gets back onto that rebounding grind. They win the rebounding battle against the Grizzlies.
Bold statement there. Again, I'll save any kind of debate on that because we will be talking about their rebounding issues in the next segment. But that would be really, really impressive for Miami and a good statement for them after taking some criticism from Eric Spoelstra over the weekend's performances, especially on the rebounding battle.
Are you ready for our second prediction, David?
Always, Nostradumbwes.
Wednesday against Milwaukee.
Okay.
We just played this team. I think everybody knows what's what in regards to the Heat, in regards to the Bucks. And here's one thing that is definitely obvious. Both of these teams are giving up a ton of threes. In fact, these are the two teams giving up the most three-point attempts in the league this season. It's the Heat and the Bucks. And that was still the case this weekend on Saturday night. And I think it's going to be the case again on Wednesday. And that's what's going to make Duncan Robinson the Miami Heat's leading scorer in that game. Now, we rarely see that. A lot of times Duncan Robinson is sort of the second or third when he's playing well, like right when that 3-point shot is going down, he's not usually the guy leading the team in scoring. Usually that's Jimmy Butler, Tyler Herro, even a Kyle Lowry could do something like that. I think this is going to be the instance where Duncan Robinson goes out. I think he's going to have one of his best games of the season, if not his best game of the season. He's going to be Miami's leading scorer in that game because one thing I noticed against Milwaukee was they were giving up that corner three quite a bit. And that's something the Bucks do, is they do give up that corner three a lot. And that's where Duncan Robinson has been finding most of his success this season. I know that he still wants to do the dribble handoffs and things like that, but he got into the lane a little bit against Milwaukee on those kinds of plays. I think they're going to funnel him to the corner more often. I think they're going to see that on film. I think they're going to lean into it a little bit more, the Heat will. And I think Duncan Robinson springs loose. I think he has his best game from three-point range of the season. I think he's Miami's leading scorer against the Bucks on Wednesday.
That is perhaps your boldest prediction yet, Nostradamus. I feel like go ahead and pencil yourself as a big red X next to that one because I just don't see any chance of that happening. But you know what? I like the bold direction you're taking. It's interesting. Oh,
it wasn't as bold as Duncan Robinson's vest that he wore in that post-game press conference.
All right, let's move on to Saturday's matchup against the Chicago Bulls. That should be a good one.
Jimmy Butler's going to be back. And he's going to have to shake off some of this rust these first two games. But I'm telling you, by the time he plays Chicago, that rust will be fully shaken off, David.
Yep.
Jimmy Butler will attempt at least 10 free throw attempts in that game. The last time Jimmy Butler played Chicago, he went 6 for 7 from the line. Chicago is giving up one of the highest opponent free throw rates in the league. I think we see Jimmy Butler without Bam Adebayo in the mid post. I think you're going to see a lot of pick and pop, a lot of Dwayne Dedmon spacing the floor, a lot of Omer Yurtseven spacing the floor. It's going to clear up some of the stuff in the lane a little bit. They're going to be going to him often. I think this is going to be his breakout game post tailbone, right? I think you're going to see him tread water against Memphis. He's going to do the job that he needs to do against Milwaukee. And then I think against Chicago, we get another classic Jimmy Butler performance, and that's going to include him dictating the tempo, dictating the pace of the game by getting to the free throw line early and often. At least 10 free throw attempts for Jimmy Butler. A lot of times that doesn't sound like it's a big deal, but in this season, the way that officials are calling it, getting to the line 10 times is a really big accomplishment these days. So I think we get 10 of them, at least, from Jimmy Butler on Saturday against the Bulls.
A huge win, taking advantage of Chicago's active defense, maybe forcing Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso into foul trouble. I would have loved a prediction that somebody yams on Alex Caruso's bald head. I guess that's unlikely, unless there's a bonus prediction that you're willing to make, Nostradamus.
Sure, I'll go ahead and throw that out there. Somebody, I think we get a Caleb Martin poster right on Alex Caruso. There you go. Let's add that to the list.
I love
think
it.
That might be the David Ramil prediction there, but we can run it back with
I like it.
Nostradamus.
I like it. You know what? It's good. Yeah. Piggybacking off of the great insight that Nostradamus provides. And look, that would be a fantastic accomplishment for Butler to be able to take advantage, proving once and for all that he's truly Kyle Lowry's best friend and taking advantage of that Chicago defense. It's going to be a fun matchup. And I can't wait to see the dunk on Alex Caruso from Caleb Martin. That should be a good one. But we'll get into some more issues regarding Miami's rebounding the next segment, as well as Monday Madness, my time to get angry. But first, just a reminder, that I love the holidays. I think everybody loves the holidays. I know sometimes it can be a little difficult for some people, but if you like tasty treats, all the good food, and all the other things that you like to eat over the holidays, then let me tell you, it's great, but you might want to try an alternative. And that's why it's the perfect time for Built Bars. Built Bar is the new holiday dessert. Feast on something delicious and feel good about it. A slice of pie can have upwards of 300 calories. You don't have any of those concerns with Built Bars, and yet you sacrifice another taste. So many delicious flavors. They're low calorie, low carb, low fat, high protein, giving you all the nutrients you can possibly want without sacrificing any of the taste. 100% covered in chocolate, soft and easy to chew. You don't even know you're eating a protein bar. You think you're having just another slice of pie or another piece of cake around the holidays. You know what? You're going to go to office parties. You're going to go to families and friends' houses and indulge in all these delicious treats. You can just say, you know what? No thanks. I've got my delicious new protein bar here, Built Bar. That's the way to go. Share some with at your family gatherings or at your office parties. It will make things less awkward. I think there'll be new surprises all month long as they introduce new flavors here and there. Go to built.com, use the promo code LOCK15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Use the promo code LOCK15 for 15% off, but only if you go to built.com. Bet online, they've got you covered for all season long for more props, odds, and lines than ever before. As football season continues the march to the playoffs, the Dolphins just won their 5th straight. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus from basketball, football, the NHL, and your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. Bet online where the game starts. Just a reminder that you can always reach us via email at lockedonheat@gmail.com or via Twitter using the hashtag AskAllHeat. Be sure to please subscribe to the show and leave a review. Of course, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're halfway to 1,000. That's the goal. Hopefully, we'll get that within the next month. And we can't do it without you. And your feedback is so important to us. So please make sure you click on the link on our show notes so you can fill out a brief survey so you can let us know how you watch or listen to the show and any changes that you'd like to recommend. But again, we couldn't do the show without you. So on every occasion, we want to, whenever we can, we want to wave hello and shout out a fan of the show that we appreciate you. And this week's Heat Wave goes out to Gabriel Brock. Gabriel's a longtime listener and now a viewer on YouTube, which you should be too. And he was one of the first guests over at the Locked On Heat watch party a few weeks back with his lovely girlfriend, Vanessa. So great to have them there to watch the Detroit Pistons game. It was so fun, so much fun to interact with Gabriel and all the other fans in attendance there. And thank you so much for always being supportive of this show.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was our first watch party. Gabriel told us he would be coming out in the YouTube comments. We were really excited to see him there, and it was a really, overall, I think a better turnout than you and I even expected. So we look forward to doing that again, and that's part of the survey that we have that you mentioned. It's in the show notes. Click that link, and you can tell us a little bit more about if you would be interested in attending a watch party, how you would be interested in where you might want to do it, and how you could help us organize our next one.
All right. Let's get into some time for me to kind of, I know you don't want to start off the week this way necessarily. Everybody's trying to stay positive, especially around the holidays. That can be a little difficult for people. But you know what? Sometimes I just get so filled with anger. I've just got to explode. It's time for Monday Madness. Wes, let me tell you, nothing gets me as upset as this new trend around the NBA of welcoming back players that were on your team, however briefly, and putting up a video kind of saying, oh, welcome back. Thank you for your service. Whatever crap they put out there on those Jumbotrons to kind of remind you that you spent some time wearing this particular jersey. And against the Milwaukee Bucks on Saturday, it was even worse when they trotted out PJ Tucker, forced a microphone into his hands, and gave him his championship ring, where he had to get all up in his feels and just talk about his championship with the Bucks. He's not playing for them anymore. It's time to put that in the rearview mirror, move on, forget about it, make a private ceremony behind the scenes. You've got plenty of time before the game starts. Just grab PJ aside, give him his ring, let him stash it in his locker, and let him be done with it. Why put him out there so you can reignite those old feelings? That's like having to kiss an ex in front of all your new girlfriend or something like that. Why would you do that? That would be terrible. That would be, well, first of all, likely the end of a relationship. I don't see why they do it.
Look, I mostly agree with like the Jumbotron tribute videos to like a guy who just played for you for a season and you guys went to the playoffs and you're like, oh, tip of the hat,
Welcome back, Mo Harkless.
J.R. Smith, Mo Harkless, right? Like it's just like, all right, that's enough. But the guy won a championship in front of those fans. Like I think that's okay. You give him the ring. He has his moment.
Ah,
He didn't get that ring with his teammates. I guess the alternative would be like you just mail it to him, UPS overnight shipping or something like, or you give it to him like before the game like that. But that's now you have an opportunity for Bucks fans to
ah.
pay tribute to PJ Tucker for
I don't
all
want
the
the
things he
Bucks to
did.
pay tribute to anything. I don't even want to remember the Bucks championship at all. And I hate that they forced PJ out there to say we'll always be dogs. We're dogs are back together. I love
Right.
you, Cleveland. I mean, Cleveland, Milwaukee. I forget it.
What's the
No.
difference?
Yeah, exactly. What's the difference? Let's move on. I don't
Yep.
even want to talk about it anymore. Enough with the tributes and past teammates and stuff like that. Now we have some legitimate concerns, as much as that might have been kind of artificial there. But Miami's rebounding woes do continue after emphasizing the need to grab rebounds and initiate their fast break offense earlier in the season. The Heat lost both rebounding battles this weekend, and it was particularly egregious against the Milwaukee Bucks. They were just clubbed completely there.
Mhm.
Eric Spoelstra said after that game, this is a quote from him, I think it has to be a big refocus and recommitment to it. Throughout the first 5-6 weeks of the season, we were one of the top rebounding teams in the league, and we came into training camp, the preseason, the start of the season, as that being an emphasis. It's getting away from us a little bit. We have to make sure that we get to finishing possessions the way we're capable of. The Heat now ranks 22nd overall in terms of rebounding and takes on Memphis team that ranks first in the department. Miami at one point ranked fourth early on in the season, and now again slipping to 22nd. Wes, is this a legitimate concern? I know your favorite stat, the rebounds, but at the same time, it was such a big part of what made this Miami
Yeah.
team so electric. It seems like they've completely gone away from that part of their identity.
Yeah, because the formula is play great defense, rebound the ball. You're not going to make a ton of threes. That's sort of just Duncan Robinson and Kyle Lowry's job, and PJ Tucker from the corners. But rebounding is a fundamental principle of this team, the way that they're built and the way that they're going to win. And you mentioned like they're 22nd in the league. That's because over the last 10 games, they're 30th in the league in rebounding rate. Like that's
That's not
literally
good.
the worst.
Yeah,
They gave up 19 offensive rebounds to Milwaukee. And look, you watch that game, and you heard Tyler Herro after the game against Milwaukee. Eric's supposed to say, "We got to recommit, we got to box out, we got to do the little
right.
things a little bit more." It's also a problem when two of your best rebounders aren't playing in Bam and Jimmy Butler. It's a problem
Sure.
when I think Caleb Martin has been a really nice player for them, but he's a small forward and he's playing backup four for them. Markieff
Yep.
Morris continues to be out. He's a good rebounder. Omer Yurtseven looks like he should be a better rebounder. His rebounding rate is fine, but it's not as good as you'd think it would be. Dwayne Dedman has been good, but he's not getting those athletic rebounds the way that Bam and Jimmy are. He's getting the ones that are sort of right. He does his job, but he's not going out of his way. He's not going out of his rebounding zone and grabbing those hard to reach ones, which is sort of what makes an elite rebounding team is getting the ones that you're not supposed to get, not just the ones that you're supposed to get. The other part of it too, David, is that they're playing so much zone defense lately
Yep.
that makes it really hard to rebound. I think that's really the problem here is because instead of guarding a man, when you're playing defense, man-to-man defense, and that ball and the shot goes up, you just turn around, box out your man. But in the zone, you might not be face-to-face, toe-to-toe with anybody. You all of a sudden have to search out a body to go box out. And it's kind of
Right.
unclear, okay, who's supposed to be boxing out? Who's supposed to be actually chasing the rebound? It's really hard to rebound out of the zone. I understand why Miami has gone more to zone. It's because that lack of size I was just talking about. It's hard to play man-to-man defense, especially when you're asking young guys like, Caleb Martin, Max Strus, Gabe Vincent to play, that level of defense against elite competition. I don't know if they're ready to do that. And so they've been leaning more and more into this zone, and it's taking them out of position. I actually don't love how much zone this team is playing.
Yep.
I don't even think they're playing it that well. Like they're
Right.
allowing a lot of stuff backdoor. I think they need to really curb the zone a little bit. Like they need to cut back on it. I just don't think it's working. And I think that's the culprit, the main one. Plus the injuries,
Now,
obviously.
yeah, I mean, absolutely. So, including the injuries, the lack of size, and now I think a lot of Heat fans are kind of curious about whether or not Omer Yurtseven can be a regular contributor. I know
Mhm.
we answered this in our most recent episode as well last week, but at the same time, after extended minutes on Friday and Saturday, do you think he gets an uptick in playing time so he can help alleviate some of these rebounding woes? Because if you're starting Deadman and then you don't have any other big body to bring off the bench, you're playing PJ Tucker at the five, more
Yeah.
extended minutes. Is Yurtseven playing more time a solution for this rebounding issue?
I don't know if it's a solution, but it's certainly better than putting KZ Okpala in there and Eric Spoelstra agrees because Okpala hasn't been getting minutes the last couple of games and Yurtseven has. Now, maybe that's just because of the matchup, just like Milwaukee, Indiana is really big with Miles Turner, Domantas Sabonis in that front court, and I don't think that was a good matchup for Okpala. It was a better one for Yurtseven. I think we'll continue to see a mix of those guys, but I think there could be a lot, not just from a personnel perspective, but you're getting Jimmy Butler back. That's going to obviously be helpful. But if you're able to, and with Jimmy Butler back, maybe you don't have to play so much zone, right? Because you have one of the best wing defenders in the game back on the court for you. So I think it's committing back to boxing out, cutting back on how much zone defense you're playing, getting Jimmy Butler back. I think we're going to see to me, it was just a bunch of things going wrong for Miami from a personnel perspective. Like, you want to be a good rebounding team, but you don't have your best rebounders. That's a problem. You got one of them back. I think Jimmy Butler, he makes so many things. He makes everybody better. He blankets over so many problems on that team. It's why he's still one of the most underrated players in the NBA, is because he's able to do that. I think we're going to see the Heat be a little bit better of a rebounding team this week.
All right. Well, hopefully they'll get back on track against the Memphis Grizzlies. That'll be a fun game. And of course, we'll have your recap after that game. So thank you so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Remember that every episode is always free and available. So make sure you get the show wherever it's available. Make sure to also check out Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. This is David Ramil signing off for now. Thanks for joining me, Wes.
Wrap it up, B. Congrats, you made it this far. While you're here, why don't you hit that subscribe button down below? It's free for you, and it'll help feed the Locked On Heat Flamingos.